Hey guys, good morning, wherever, whatever it is at your end. It is good morning over here. I sound a bit weird. I sound like I have a cold. I don't have a cold. It's just that I've, just started on tea and stuff, and I'm basically straight out of bed. I've been awake for a couple of hours, but I was watching, unboxings and things. Throwback Thursday on the Hermit's Cave and all that. But something's happened to me. Something's changed again that I just have to report here. And so, as some of you guys know, I've been, having a bit more of a interaction with my dad again in early this week. Today's Friday. That was on Monday, 30th of September, I think. So today's 4th of October, right? Friday. I'm not completely sure how well this is gonna go. So because I'm not really completely awake yet, I'm also rather shaky, and I'm okay. Don't worry, I am perfectly fine. It's just that I saw. Why is this doing it? I have to stare into the camera the whole time. Otherwise, it just doesn't pick up on my face or something like that. Silly. I watched a channel. I watched somebody's video. His name's James Panther. You can look him up easily enough, or I can stick a link in the description below. He does astrology. Actually, the funny thing is, I was looking up astrology bits for my dad, basically trying to make sure of certain positions and conjunctions and things and what that is generally supposed to mean. I'm not going to go into any details, poor man. I'm just gonna, that's what I was doing. And then I was looking at Black Moon Lilith and Pluto and stuff like that. Turns out that the video that comes up is this James Panther guy. It looks really nice, friendly. I've no, it's a bit more of the professional type YouTube. I don't know, compared to what it is that I'm doing here. Yeah, anything is more professional than what I am doing here. But he has got this video about Black Moon Pluto, except it is about the current situation of Pluto and Black Moon lunar apogee, I think, that he's talking about, in Capricorn, as it was happening in early 2018. And that's when he put out the video, in May 2018, right? So this isn't something that is current at the moment, because actually it is Neptune that is on the lunar apogee, or the Black Moon Lilith position, at this time in October 19, right? So because the things moved over. The interesting bit in there being, for me, that halfway through, let me say that properly, I think it was in September, early September 18, that the BML actually moved into Aquarius. And so somewhere at the end of 18, there you have it. I'm recording this also for myself and for whoever may find this interesting, the BML, the Black Moon Lilith true position, was in the middle of Aquarius. And that's relevant to my dad's horoscope again. So, good things, I think. All good things. I just want to know whether anything really happens, and whether it's actually, that period where blah, and the things, and everything changes. To me, interacting, even this tiny bit of interaction that I had with my dad Monday, it just has like precipitated a whole series of questions and anxiety, even for myself, that I've been trying to. My hair looks like a mess. I brushed it, but it's still all over the place. Anxiety and worries, insecurities, and all that type of stuff, which is good because then I have to look at those, right? So it took me a couple days to get to that point where I was kind of feeling like I had a bit of a sense of what was going on, really, and that it isn't about him, it's all about me, myself, and I, always, right? And what I did, basically in the middle of the night, what I did was I started a new completion process phase for myself. And there are a couple of things about that that I just have to share with you guys and I just have to put out there. I'll be having tea at the same time because parched and generally screaming for tea, you know? In case you're wondering, it is plain rooibos, so South African caffeine-free tea, you know, this type that we have a lot. My mug is from Brittany, Bretagne, and it's actually my husband's mug. And I have a second mug over there that has a snowman on it that has the same brew, because I need 2 mugs before I can even start having any kinds of, you know, thoughts of being active and available. But at this point, this was just too important to me, okay? So, completion process. I saw, and that was the interesting bit to me also about James Panther, his channel. He works with the completion process as well, and he's got a couple of really good introductions and presentations, and I watched one of those yesterday. So that was the real reason why I also felt confident enough now suddenly to re-engage in this thing, because I have done this and I have got the completion process book by Teal Swan and used it, and I've used this process and I know how it works, but it's still fairly easy to stop at a certain point most of the times and just, you know, leave it off, and then there's still areas that are just not going to be looked at or engaged with. So I felt that in this particular situation, also if I want to be my best possible self for all parties concerned in the future, I have to have a go at this. I have to make sure that this, that I unearth whatever needs to be resolved if possible, or that I acknowledge what's been going on for me and see how the things work out and play out. See? So I just have to pause for 1 minute. So, all right, back again. So this completion process is basically, I've gone into this on my channel before a couple of times, so many of you will already know what I'm on about and why I'm such a fan of this. It's basically really a way of shifting your focus and allowing for the older parts of yourself to speak up, and allowing for yourself to hear what it is that's being said, or see it, or feel it, or perceive it. So basically the focus goes from being outside and being involved in survival and fighting for yourself and keeping, you know, stiff upper lip and all that. You shift in completely the opposite direction. So you go like, okay, so I have this anxiety or issues in that of that nature. What is behind that? And try to just sit as close as you can to the emotion and see what it tells you, basically. So just in a nutshell right there. If you want to know more, I certainly recommend James Panther's intro, and okay, so there's more. There's loads more. Teal Swan's got a channel as well. Teal Swan herself may be slightly intimidating because she's had to do her own thing with these things. But I still think the process itself is just absolutely gorgeous. And I've, another instance, this vlog of mine. I'm 10 minutes in and I haven't really told you about my story. Anyway, it's just the way that goes. I went in because I had a sense of anxiety, a fear of being inadequate. There was some sense of just not feeling like I was engaged enough with the things. And I was dissociating, I was feeling afraid, I was feeling like I wasn't strong enough, which is always a risk. When I don't feel strong enough, I just flip over into this inadequate mode. I suppose it's kind of familiar to a lot of people. So I realized at a point that there was a sense of a need inside me that had never been met. And how I got to that is that I haven't got any to show you at this point because I wasn't, with that anymore. Maybe. I got a really filthy habit of picking at woolly materials. So there's a sheep's wool fleece out there that I tend to just, get frustrated at. And I end up having these little pellets of felt-like fluff, and I just sit with one of those in my hand, and I just, that's just one way of having something to grab at. And I had one of those last night when it was in the middle of the night again. And I kind of went like, okay, so instead of messing around with felt pellets, I'll just put this away and I will stick my own hand in between these fingers that are apparently expressing, it tends to be my right hand, that are, pinching and trying to grab something. And instantly what came to me was like this sense of, okay, so there is this huge need. There is a person inside me that has this huge need to grab onto something. It's insane. It's like, of course there is. It makes a lot of sense. But it was like a separate entity inside myself. And it was wreaking havoc on my life, always. It has, because you're separate from it, it just goes and pushes your buttons and organizes your triggers and that kind of thing all the time. So I, of course, I have, my own normal-ish type life where everything is organized according to expectations and things that I have to, levels that I have to be at and that type of thing. So that doesn't jive with the need at all. These are the two halves of the person, really, of me in this case. So I had, got my hands closely scrunched together like that. And I could kind of feel that it was kind of helping for the needy hand to have another hand to hang on to. And after a while, I could feel it inside me. I was really engaging with this emotion. And it was like I had a little chimpanzee kid, that was hanging on to me with 4 feet, like they do, like so. And I could really feel like this muscle strength and this almost pinching, Not that it hurts me at all. It was just a very strong, like also it feels a bit magnetic in a way. It's like a field of a completely different energy that is coming into you or hanging on really close. And still, there was a distinction, a difference between me and it in a way. So I felt like, okay, so I have to, because that's also something Jim said, you have to go into the emotion, let the emotion take over your body. Scary, yes. And this is why this is not for pussy willows. This is you know, you have to get this going, and you also have to be patient with yourself, because one step at a time, like I always say. So I kind of accepted this this force of this need into myself, and the need had everything to do, that became obvious at that moment or at the time. It had everything to do with being left alone, not even so much physically left alone, but emotionally. And for some reason or other, I was not engaging with my parents emotionally, as I should have. So probably also as they expected me to. I have no idea about that. I realized that from inside the emotion, it felt like being abandoned and being from a different planet, like that kind of thing, you know, like there were elements missing for me to connect. That's an important bit right there. Okay, this is also why I make these vlogs, because as I go along, I discover other elements to this tale, to this type of situation, to this picture. It's not easy. It really isn't. Then afterwards, I was in this situation from the inside of feeling this pain of being alone, and it's very familiar. Everybody says this. Everybody who's working with this process talks about these same things. It's like the secret then at that point is that you pass from a situation of anxiety and inadequacy to a situation of understanding your own emotions a lot better from the inside. So that's a plus, right? At that point, you already can feel like, okay, so at least I'm taking this seriously. And apparently this is what it was like for me, and it has nothing to do with what people did or didn't do, whether they looked after me or not. It's, for me, that's what it was like. I could not connect enough to the extent that I needed it. And that hurt a lot. And it was like being in a vacuum, in a way. Or being in a basement by yourself and nobody there. You know, that type of thing. Being locked up. It felt like being locked up. And there may be all sorts of reasons why this is my mother's fault or my dad's fault, or please, let's just not go there. Because I don't care, because there's the next bit to the story. As I was going into this field and changing myself to, I suppose, adapt to these emotions, I changed perspective again, or the world around me looked different. And there was a phase where I saw the area of the park that's behind here, which I hadn't seen when I was a kid, certainly not. Something similar maybe. And then coming out of this forested area that looked like my park here into a field, like you're going through a transition again. That's why I'm describing this. Also, there's constantly a sense of going from one world to another. So I haven't counted them, but there were at least 5 or 6 different phases in my process as I went through it this night, okay? And that's why in each phase, you have to decide, again, I had to decide, let me talk about myself here, how to accept this new world into myself, how to make it part of me, how to become aware of it, basically. And this next world was really strange, and it looked really strange because it wasn't it wasn't, sorry, just have to have a gloop. one mug. And there's the other one, which I will also have a glue from. As you can probably tell, this really isn't easy to, sorry about that, talk about these things. I was trying to get at my handkerchief here, because tea all over. Because it got weirder, it was still emotional. It was still emotional, but it was weirder. I had these long, tall, dark, elongated shapes around me, and some type of a sense of different pressures. And it was emotion, but it wasn't scary anymore. It wasn't being evaluated in any way. It wasn't like I was being put in a position with respect to my surroundings, to put it really, like that. It was like abstract feeling somehow. And then moving into that, once I'd gone through that, I was at the moment where I was born. So what it looks like now is that it developed into a timeline. Is that half an hour? No, 21, right? Okay. It's taking forever. A timeline. The thing had become a timeline, which I wasn't really expecting. It wasn't necessarily, but it makes sense, going into your emotions deeper and deeper, and them transforming and going into a different world again and again. And then I was at this point where I was born. I could see myself or feel myself being born, and before that being in my mother's womb and growing from her body, and all that was kind of okay. It was, I could feel her presence as well, and that wasn't like all bliss and happiness, which tends to be what the womb is supposed to feel like. It wasn't really like that, but it wasn't perfect, but it was, I could feel that the thread that I was following down into back in time, basically, this thread, this rope, didn't really, it didn't end with her. So there you go, okay? It just went back into time, and I, at some point, felt like and realized, hey, so now I am no longer in this connection with her, or in this incarnation, if you like. And I felt like what I was in, what I called at that time a dry world. So it was like being in a non-manifest type, that's what I'm calling it now, of course, surroundings, like somewhere on the moors, someplace like that, no plants or anything, sandy or foggy, but dry. And I could see or feel this cord of mine that I was following going up, and up there is actually the origin where I came from. So this, my soul world, okay? And this world that I'm in, this dry world, is basically like this. To me, that's what it felt like, okay? So this is only my story here. I'm not telling anything to anybody other than this is my story, okay? As usual. In this dry world, I could see lots of other cords going into the distance, like as if this is the world where somehow, and I felt that, but I couldn't really see it or make it out, decisions were made, or decisions were made somewhere, probably at the upper level, when it's time to incarnate again. And so I was faced with this level where you could see the traces of that, of those decisions being made before. Makes a kind of sense, I think. And so I was looking at that, and then I was also becoming aware of the soul dimension over the top of me. And all that time, I had realized, I'd felt that I was only half of myself. So this inadequacy that I started out with it's basically a soul lack that I felt and that I could trace back along this cord, and it didn't really have anything to do that much with my parents or the situation I grew up in, or the way they treated me or the way they treated each other. All that was like a large layer on the outside of the story that I lived, that I experienced, and had to kind of get through that again and again in order to get at the substance of what it was that's really bothering me. And I suppose that what with the level of integration that I've got at this time, I can actually determine the lack of integration that was there. And I can still feel it, and it's remembered inside me. So that is why this is such a big deal to me. It's like a shamanic journey again. It's been done before. I know I've heard people talk, I don't remember where exactly, but there's several times when I've heard people talk about going back to being born and all that. It's a type of shamanic journey that's done by people. And so I guess this is what I kind of do, you know? I kind of, if I allow the completion process to take me all the way, this is where I end up. And I actually end up quite close to my soul dimension. And I suppose that eventually I would also have seen, except that I fell asleep by that time, I would have seen that the nature that was of the old life in what I keep referring to as the 14th century, that content that hadn't gotten connected back to the soul life, right? There was this breakage happening between that life that was crucial to me and the soul dimension. And because that broke, I restored that in a meditation a couple of months ago. And that was fine, and that was, you know, really helpful, and I felt really good. It was like the opposite of what I'm doing now, because now I had to kind of work my way through my own cells back up to this awareness of where it is that I'm coming from. And the cells themselves carry this print of what happened and how exactly I came into this world as a half only of a person, which is freaky and weird and sick also, I think. So from being there, and if I look at, it's like I can actually experience now the story as it was, because, and that's the interesting bit, I think, I hope for some people, is that you, what we do is we shelve experiences, when, especially when they're hard to deal with, they get shelved. And what you end up with is just a warehouse full of old things that are related to each other, and there is a pattern, but you have to start at the best possible location for yourself to engage with these things again, and then it'll just lead us in and lead us. The work will actually lead us, I suppose, yes, because that's what it did. I wasn't really directing any of this. It was just happening, and I was just following along and letting it all happen and letting it come to me. So I'm kind of hoping this makes some kind of sense to anyone out there. I know there's a few people who are always watching these interesting weirdness going on, you know, on this end. Thank you so much for that. And I'm going to leave it at that, I think, because it's already half an hour, and I don't think I've got that much more to add to this. I realize also that I am just one of a large tribe of people who are doing this type of work, and all of us together eventually make some type of difference, right? So it's not just all up to me, which is a great relief, because I used to think that you'd have to transform the world and be this, you know, be a savior, a messiah. I didn't really think I was a messiah ever. I didn't want to be a messiah. Thank you for watching, you guys. See you soon. Ciao.